when the dragon's young one goes missing. An unexpected journey begins to reunite and survive.
The twin sons of Therios were setting behind the Purple Mountains when Dr. Elena Vasquez heard the crash. The sound echoed across the valley like thunder, shaking the windows of her small research outpost. She jumped from her desk, scattering data tablets across the floor. Elena rushed to the observation window. Her outpost sat on the edge of the Whispering Plains, a vast grassland dotted with strange crystalline trees. Nothing usually disturbed the peaceful evening routine. But tonight, something had fallen from the sky. Through her scanner, Elena saw a massive shape lying in the grass about 200 meters away. It was moving, struggling. Her heart raced as she grabbed her medical kit and translation device. As a xenobiologist, she had studied many alien species, but she had never seen one crash land so close to her station. Elena stepped outside, the cool evening air brushing against her face. As she walked closer, she could see the creature more clearly. It was enormous, at least 15 meters long, with scales that shimmered like molten copper in the fading sunlight. Wings, torn and bleeding, lay folded against its side. A dragon. The native people of Therios had told her stories about dragons, but she had never seen one herself. The dragon's golden eyes locked onto her. Elena stopped, raising her hands slowly to show she meant no harm. The creature made a sound, deep and rumbling, that seemed to vibrate through the ground itself. "I want to help," Elena said softly, though she knew the dragon could not understand her words yet. She activated her translation device, a small sphere that floated between them, analyzing sounds and converting them into understandable language. The dragon tried to stand but collapsed again. Elena could see burns on its scales, as if it had flown through fire. She approached carefully, her medical scanner in hand. "Please." The dragon's voice came through the translator, rough and desperate. "Please, human, I need help." "I am Dr. Elena Vasquez," she said gently. "Let me treat your wounds first." "No time." The dragon's eyes filled with something Elena recognized immediately, despite the alien face. It was the look of a parent in agony. "My young one. My Pyrith. They took him." Elena's breath caught. "Who took him?" "Poachers, 3 days ago." The dragon, struggling with pain, lifted its head. "I am Scarith. I tracked them across 2 star systems, but they shot me down when I got close. My ship crashed in the valley." Elena's mind raced. She had heard rumors of poachers operating in this sector, capturing rare creatures to sell to wealthy collectors. The Galactic Council had done little to stop them. "I will contact the authorities," Elena said, already reaching for her communication device. "I tried," Scarith said, his voice breaking. "The Council said it is an internal matter. They will not help. Dragon families must solve their own problems," they said. "But Pyrith is just a child. He is only 5 cycles old. He must be so afraid." "Dragon." Elena looked into Scarith's eyes and saw the same desperation she had seen in her own mother's eyes years ago, when Elena's younger brother had been lost in the wilderness for 2 days. That feeling of helplessness, of watching time slip away while the authorities moved slowly. Her brother had been found safe, but those 48 hours had changed her mother forever. "How long until?" Elena hesitated. "Is Pyrith in immediate danger?" "Poachers keep their captures alive," Scarith said. "Better prices for living specimens. But every day in those cages, every day away from home, it damages a young mind. And if they reach the black markets in the Outer Rim, I may never find him." Elena looked back at her outpost, then at the injured dragon before her. She thought about her research, her safe routine, her responsibilities. Then she thought about a 5-year-old dragon child, frightened and alone, waiting for a parent who might never come. "Where were they headed?" Elena asked. Scarith's eyes widened with surprise. East, toward the fractured canyons. But, human, you cannot. I am a xenobiologist, Elena interrupted. I have tracking equipment, medical supplies, and 3 years of experience navigating this planet. You are injured and cannot fly. But together, maybe we can find Pyrith. The Council will not approve, Scarith warned. Then we will not ask for their approval, Elena said firmly. She began scanning Scarith's wounds with her medical device. First, I need to treat these burns and stabilize your wing. Then, we prepare for a journey. How fast can you travel on foot? Slower than I wish, Scarith admitted. But faster than most humans, Elena smiled. Good thing I have a hoverbike. Now, tell me everything you know about these poachers. What ship were they using? How many are there? What equipment did you see? As Scarith began to share information, Elena's scientific mind started forming a plan. She returned to her outpost and began gathering supplies, medical kits, nutrition packs, scanning equipment, emergency shelter, and her most advanced tracking devices. She sent a message to the research director, claiming she needed to conduct urgent field studies in the eastern regions. 2 hours later, Elena stood beside Scarith, her hoverbike packed with supplies. The dragon's wounds were treated and bandaged. He could walk, though with obvious pain. Why are you doing this? Scarith asked quietly. You barely know me. This is not your problem. Elena looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Because a child is missing. That makes it everyone's problem. And because sometimes, the right thing to do is also the simplest thing, help someone who needs it. Scarith lowered his massive head in a gesture of respect. Then let us begin, Elena Vasquez. My son waits for us. Together, they started east, toward the fractured canyons, toward danger, toward an unlikely rescue that would change both their lives forever. The crystalline forests of Therios glowed softly in the moonlight as Elena and Scarith traveled through the night. The trees were unlike anything found on Earth. Their trunks made of a transparent mineral that captured and reflected light in beautiful patterns. Under different circumstances, Elena would have stopped to study them. But tonight, every minute counted. Elena rode her hoverbike slowly, keeping pace with Scarith. The dragon moved with determination despite his injuries, his claws leaving deep marks in the soft ground. Every few hundred meters, he would stop and smell the air, searching for any trace of his son. The poachers used a ground vehicle, Scarith explained as they paused near a clearing. Their ship was damaged in our last encounter. They had to land and continue on wheels. Elena activated her scanning device, sweeping it across the forest floor. The screen showed faint energy signatures, the kind left by heavy machinery. There, she pointed. Tracks heading northeast. Maybe 2 days old. Win. You can see what I cannot, Scarith said with surprise. Your human technology reads the land differently than my senses. Different tools for different purposes, Elena replied. She dismounted and knelt beside a broken branch. Look at this, snapped at about 1 meter high. Too low for your kind to break naturally while walking, but perfect height for a cargo transport vehicle. Scarith examined the branch with new respect. I would have walked past this without noticing. They continued following the trail, Elena pointing out signs that told a story. Disturbed soil where the vehicle had gotten stuck. Discarded food containers from species she recognized as common among smugglers. A piece of torn fabric caught on a thorn bush. As dawn broke over the forest, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, they stopped to rest. Elena prepared a simple meal, while Scarith drank from a nearby stream. The dragon watched her with curious eyes. Tell me about Pyrith, Elena said softly. What is he like? Scarith's expression softened immediately. Curious. Too curious sometimes. He loves asking questions about everything. Why do stars shine? Where do rivers begin? How do different species communicate? The dragon made a sound that Elena's translator interpreted as a chuckle. Last month, he tried to befriend a lightning beetle, got a small shock and learned an important lesson about respecting nature's defenses. Elena smiled. He sounds wonderful. He has his mother's kindness. Scareth continued, his voice growing quieter. She passed 2 years ago from an illness. Since then, Pirith and I have only had each other. He is my world, Dr. Vasquez. My entire world. Call me Elena, she said, and we will find him. I promise we will try everything possible. They traveled through the morning, the forest gradually thinning as they approached more rocky terrain. Elena's scanner showed the energy signatures growing stronger. They were getting closer. Around midday, Elena noticed something glinting in the sunlight. She stopped the hoverbike and walked over. There, caught between 2 rocks, was a small scale. It shimmered with a golden-green color, beautiful and delicate. Scareth, Elena called softly. The dragon rushed over, his eyes widening. He gently picked up the scale with one claw, holding it as if it were the most precious thing in the universe. This is Pirith's. I recognize the pattern. Young dragons shed small scales when they are stressed. Then we are definitely on the right path, Elena said, checking her scanner. And according to these readings, they passed through here about 30 hours ago. We are closing the distance. Scareth carefully placed the scale in a small pouch on his harness. He must be so frightened. Leaving scales means high stress. But at least it tells me he is alive, and we are going the right direction. We have leaded by Lexin. We have gone. They pressed on with renewed energy. The terrain became more challenging, with large boulders and steep slopes. Elena had to abandon her hoverbike and continue on foot, carrying only essential supplies in her backpack. As afternoon arrived, they climbed a rocky hill. From the top, Elena could see the landscape stretching before them. Her heart sank. In the distance, perhaps 2 days' journey away, stood the fractured canyons. They were called that because ancient tectonic activity had split the land into a maze of deep gorges and unstable bridges of rock. The place was notorious for being nearly impossible to navigate. They are heading into the canyons, Elena said, studying the view through her binoculars. Scareth growled low. Clever. They know I cannot easily follow there. The magnetic rocks in that region interfere with flight, and the passages are too narrow for dragons my size. But not too narrow for humans, Elena observed. She adjusted her scanner, trying to penetrate deeper into the region ahead. Something appeared on her screen that made her pause. Scareth, I am picking up communication signals. Very faint, but they are there. She fine-tuned the frequency, and suddenly voices crackled through her device. They were speaking Galactic Common, the trade language used across many worlds. Auction scheduled in 48 hours, one voice said. The buyer is very interested in the dragon youngling. Rare species. Excellent condition. Should bring a high price. Good. Another voice replied. Once we deliver it, we can retire from this business. Too dangerous anyway with that angry parent flying around. The transmission ended. Elena and Scareth looked at each other. 2 days, Scareth whispered. We have only 2 days before they sell him. Then we cannot waste time, Elena said, already checking her supplies. The canyons will be dangerous, but we have advantages. They do not know we are following. They think you cannot track them there. And they definitely do not expect a human to be helping you. Why would they? Scareth asked. Most species do not interfere in others' affairs. Then they do not understand humans very well, Elena replied with determination. We have a saying on Earth. It takes a village to raise a child. It means children are everyone's responsibility, not just their parents. Pirith might be your son, but right now, his safety is my responsibility too. Scareth bowed his head low. a gesture of deep respect in dragon culture. You honor my family with your courage. Elena of Earth. Whatever happens, I will never forget this. Save your thanks for when we have Pyrith back, Elena said, adjusting her backpack. Now, let us figure out how to cross those canyons. I have some ideas, but I will need your help. As the sun began its descent toward evening, they studied the canyons in the distance, planning their approach. Somewhere in that maze of rock and danger, a young dragon waited for rescue, and Elena was determined that fear would be the only thing the poachers should feel when they realized their pursuers had not given up. The journey continued, and hope traveled with them. The fractured canyons looked even more intimidating up close. Elena stood at the edge, staring down into a gorge so deep that the bottom disappeared into shadows. Natural rock bridges crisscrossed the space like a giant's puzzle, some wide enough to walk on, others barely thicker than a rope. The magnetic rocks, Scarith explained, pointing with his claw. They contain iron deposits that create strange fields. My internal navigation becomes confused here. I cannot tell direction properly. Recona. We. We. Elena pulled out her scanner and frowned. The screen flickered with interference. My equipment is affected too. But look. She adjusted the settings, switching to a different mode. If I use ground-penetrating radar instead of magnetic sensors, I can map the stable paths. The density of the rock tells me which bridges are solid and which might collapse. Clever, Scarith said with admiration. You adapt your tools to the environment. That is what humans do best. Elena replied, already marking safe routes on her digital map. We find solutions when the obvious path does not work. They began their descent into the canyon system. Elena went first, testing each bridge carefully with her scanner before crossing. Scarith followed, his massive weight making the stone creak and groan. More than once, Elena held her breath, hoping the rock would hold. The first bridge crossing went smoothly. The second one too. But on the third bridge, halfway across a particularly long span, Elena heard a sound that made her blood run cold. A sharp crack echoed through the canyon. The bridge is breaking, Scarith shouted. Elena looked down. A fracture line was spreading across the stone beneath Scarith's feet. She quickly calculated distances. Scarith was too far from either side to reach safety in time. Do not move, Elena commanded. She threw off her backpack and pulled out her emergency climbing equipment cables made from synthetic fibers, stronger than steel but lightweight. Her hands worked rapidly, tying one end to a stable rock pillar beside her. Elena, save yourself, Scarith called out. Leave me, and find Pyrith. Not happening, Elena shouted back. She activated the cable's magnetic launcher and fired it across the gap. The cable wrapped around Scarith's harness, just as the bridge gave way completely. Scarith fell, but the cable held. Elena had anchored it to 3 different points, distributing the weight. The dragon swung in the air, suspended over the dark abyss. Elena's arms strained as she operated the winch, slowly pulling Scarith toward the solid ledge where she stood. Almost there, she grunted, her muscles burning with effort. Just a little more. With a final heave, Scarith's claws found purchase on the rock. He scrambled up to safety, breathing heavily. For a long moment, they both sat on the ledge, recovering from the close call. You saved my life, Scarith said quietly. That cable should not have held my weight. Earth engineering, Elena said with a tired smile. We build things to last. Now come on. We lost time. We need to keep moving. They continued more carefully. Elena, testing every step. The canyon walls around them showed strange patterns, layers of different colored rock. some glowing faintly with mineral deposits. It would have been beautiful if they were not racing against time. As they navigated deeper into the maze, Elena's scanner picked up those communication signals again. She stopped and listened carefully. Arriving at the facility soon, a voice said through the static. Security is ready. No one will find us here. What about the dragon parent? Another voice asked. Lost in the canyons probably, or gave up. Even if it somehow followed, our defenses will handle it. Facility is built into the mesa. Only one entrance, heavily guarded. Nothing gets in without authorization. Elena recorded the transmission and studied the terrain ahead. In the distance, through a gap in the canyon walls, she could see a large flat-topped hill, a mesa. Structures were carved into its side, camouflaged to blend with the natural rock. That is where they are keeping Pyrith, Elena said, showing Scarith the location. It looks like a fortress, Scarith observed with concern. It does, Elena agreed. Which means we cannot use force. We need a different approach. A smarter approach. They found a sheltered spot among the rocks and made camp for the night. Elena spread out her remaining equipment, thinking through possibilities. Scarith watched her work, amazed at how this small human had brought them so far. Tell me, Elena, Scarith said as they rested. On your Earth, do all humans help strangers like this? Elena thought for a moment. Not all, but many do. We have a belief that kindness should not have boundaries. My grandmother used to say, a stranger is just a friend you have not met yet. She helped many people in her life, even when it was difficult. Your grandmother sounds wise, Scarith said. She was, Elena replied softly. She taught me that the measure of a person is not in what they do when it is easy, but what they do when it is hard. Helping you and Pyrith is hard, but it is also right. That makes it worth doing. Scarith was quiet for a moment. In dragon culture, we have a bond called flame kin. It means family not by blood, but by choice and actions. You have become flame kin to me, Elena. My family is your family now. Elena felt warmth spread through her chest at those words. Thank you, Scarith. That means everything to me. As the twin moons of Therios rose above the canyon walls, Elena studied the mesa facility through her binoculars. Guards patrolled the entrance. Scanning equipment monitored the approaches. It looked impossible to enter. But Elena had not come this far to give up now. She pulled out her identification credentials from her research position. An idea was forming in her mind, a risky idea, but one that might work. Scarith, she said slowly. How do you feel about creating a distraction? The dragon's eyes gleamed with understanding. Tell me your plan. Elena began explaining her idea. It was bold and dangerous. It required perfect timing and a bit of luck. But most importantly, it required trust between a human and a dragon, two beings from different worlds, working together for a common goal. By morning, they would put the plan into action. By tomorrow night, they would either have Pyrith back, or they would have failed completely. There was no middle ground now. Elena checked her equipment one last time and tried to rest. Tomorrow would demand everything she had. But when she closed her eyes, she imagined a young dragon's face, hopeful and waiting. That image gave her the strength she needed. The rescue mission was about to begin. Dawn broke over the mesa, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Elena checked her appearance one final time. She had cleaned her research uniform and prepared her official identification. Today, she would not be a rescuer. Sneaking in, she would walk through the front door as Dr. Elena Vasquez, xenobiologist and potential buyer. Are you certain about this? Scarith asked nervously. If they discover who you are, they will not, Elena interrupted with more confidence than she felt. These poachers operate in the black market. They want money, not trouble. A scientist interested in purchasing rare specimens is exactly the kind of customer they want to see. Scareth nodded slowly. I will wait for your signal. When you trigger the emergency systems, I will approach from the east side. The confusion should give us the opening we need. Elena placed her hand on Scareth's scaled forearm. Remember, no matter what happens, Pyrith's safety comes first. If something goes wrong with me, you focus on getting him out. Promise me. I promise, Scareth said reluctantly. But I will not leave you behind if I can help it. They separated, Scareth moving to his position while Elena approached the facility's main entrance. Two guards stood at the doorway, armed with stun weapons. They watched her with suspicious eyes as she walked up confidently. I am Dr. Elena Vasquez, she announced, showing her credentials. I received communication about rare specimens available for purchase. I have an appointment. Ags. The guards exchanged glances. One spoke into a communication device, then nodded. The boss says to let her in, but you will be scanned first. Elena submitted to their security checks, grateful she had left all her tracking equipment hidden outside. They found nothing suspicious, just a researcher with standard tools and a data pad. Inside, the facility was larger than it appeared from outside. Carved chambers extended deep into the mesa. Elena's heart raced as a man approached tall, wearing expensive clothes that did not match the rough surroundings. This was clearly the leader. Dr. Vasquez, he said with a smile that did not reach his eyes. I am Vex Morrigan. Welcome to my collection facility. I understand you are interested in acquiring some unique specimens. I am, Elena replied coolly, playing her role. My research institute has funding for rare xenobiological subjects. I heard you have access to species not available through legal channels. Indeed, Vex said proudly. Let me show you what we have. He led her through corridors lined with cages. Elena's stomach turned as she saw the conditions creatures from across the galaxy, cramped in small spaces, some injured, all looking miserable. She forced her face to remain neutral, professional. Then she saw him. Pyrith. The young dragon was in a reinforced holding cell near the back. He was smaller than Elena had imagined, maybe the size of a large horse, with scales that shimmered golden green. His eyes were wide with fear, and he was curled into a defensive position. Ah, the dragon youngling, Vex said, noticing her interest. Quite rare. Dragon offspring almost never get captured. The parents are very protective. You understand. This one would cost you considerably. Elena approached the cell slowly, studying Pyrith with professional interest while her heart ached for the frightened child. May I examine him more closely? I need to verify his health before making such an investment. Of course, Vex agreed. But do not get too close. Even young, they can be dangerous. Elena knelt near the bars. Pyrith backed away, making small, frightened sounds. Elena spoke softly, careful to keep her voice calm. It is okay. I am here to help. Your father sent me. At the word father, Pyrith's eyes widened. He did not understand her words, but something in her tone made him pause. Scareth is waiting, Elena whispered, so quietly that only Pyrith could hear. She stood and turned to Vex. He seems healthy, but traumatized. That affects long-term research value. What other specimens do you have? As Vex led her away to show other captives, Elena memorized the layout. She counted guards 5 total. She noted security systems, cameras, locked doors, an emergency alarm system. Most importantly, she spotted the central control panel that managed the entire facility. I need time to consider, Elena said after touring the facility. These are significant investments. Can I access your communication system to contact my institute? Of course, Vex said, gesturing to a terminal. Elena sat at the terminal, her fingers moving across the keyboard. To anyone watching, she appeared to be sending messages. But actually, she was accessing the facility's emergency protocols. Years of working with computer systems in research stations had taught her how these networks functioned. She found what she needed: the emergency containment breach protocol. If triggered, it would automatically open all cages to prevent trapped creatures from perishing in a disaster. It would also sound alarms and unlock exit doors. "Very well," Elena announced, standing. "I have made my decision. I want to purchase." Her hand accidentally knocked against the emergency activation panel. Immediately, red lights began flashing throughout the facility. A loud alarm blared. All around them, cage doors started sliding open. "What did you do?" Vex shouted in anger. "Nothing. The system malfunctioned," Elena cried, acting shocked. Chaos erupted instantly. Freed creatures rushed from their cages, confused and frightened. Guards ran in every direction, trying to contain the situation. In the confusion, Elena sprinted toward Pyrith's cell. The reinforced door had opened like all the others. Pyrith stood frozen, uncertain whether to trust this situation. Elena extended her hand. "Come with me. Your father is waiting." Something in her eyes convinced him. Pyrith bounded from the cell and followed Elena as she ran toward the exit. Behind them, Vex was shouting orders, but his guards were too busy with dozens of escaping animals. They burst outside into daylight. Elena grabbed the emergency beacon from her pocket and activated it, the signal for Scarith. Within seconds, Scarith appeared from behind a rock formation, running at full speed despite his injuries. "Pyrith! Irith! Father!" Pyrith's voice came through Elena's translator for the first time, high and young, and filled with joy. Father and son met in the open ground, Scarith wrapping his wings around Pyrith protectively. The young dragon pressed against his father, trembling with relief and emotion. But there was no time for reunion yet. "They are coming," Elena warned, seeing guards emerging from the facility. "This way," Scarith commanded. With Pyrith at his side and Elena running alongside, they disappeared into the canyon maze. Behind them, confusion and angry shouts echoed, but the three of them were already gone, lost in the labyrinth of stone. They had done it. Against all odds, they had rescued Pyrith. But now came the hardest part, getting home safely with the poachers, surely pursuing them. The journey was far from over. The canyon walls echoed with distant shouts as Elena, Scarith, and Pyrith navigated through the maze of stone. Elena's lungs burned from running, but she pushed forward, knowing they needed to put as much distance as possible between themselves and the facility. "This way," Scarith called, leading them through a narrow passage that opened into a small, hidden valley. "We can rest here briefly. The walls will hide us from scanners." They collapsed in the shade of an overhanging rock. Pyrith pressed close to his father, still trembling slightly. Scarith wrapped one wing protectively around his son, his eyes filled with relief and love. "Are you hurt?" Scarith asked Pyrith gently, examining him for injuries. "No, father," Pyrith replied, his voice small. "Scared, but not hurt. The cage was cold and lonely. I thought I would never see you again. I would have searched every star in the galaxy to find you," Scarith said softly, touching his forehead to Pyrith's. "And I did not search alone. Pyrith, this is Elena." Pyrith turned his golden-green eyes toward Elena. "You are the one who whispered to me in the cage. You said Father sent you." "I did," Elena said, with a warm smile. "Your father traveled very far and worked very hard to find you. He never gave up. Not for a single moment." "Thank you," Pyrith said shyly. "You are very brave for someone so small." Elena laughed despite their dangerous situation. "Size does not measure courage, young one. I have learned that from your father." A sound in the distance made them all freeze voices, getting closer. The poachers were searching the canyons. "We need to move," Elena said, checking her scanner. "But they are between us and the way we came. We need another route. There is an old dragon path, Scareth said thoughtfully. It runs along the northern ridge, dangerous and rarely used, but it leads back toward the crystalline forests. From there, we can reach your research station. Then we take that path. Elena decided. They traveled carefully, staying low and moving through shadows. Elena used her knowledge of the terrain to guide them around the poachers' search parties. Twice, they had to hide while guards passed nearby. Pyrith remained remarkably quiet and brave, understanding the seriousness of their situation. As they climbed higher into the northern ridges, the path became treacherous. Loose rocks made footing difficult. At one point, Elena's foot slipped, and she nearly fell down a steep slope. Scareth's tail shot out, catching her before she tumbled. "Thank you," Elena breathed. "We are even now," Scareth said, with what Elena recognized as a dragon's smile. "You saved me on the bridge. I save you on the ridge." By late afternoon, they finally emerged from the canyon system. The crystalline forests stretched before them, glowing in the sunlight. Safety felt closer now, but they were all exhausted. "Can you both continue?" Elena asked, worried about Pyrith especially. The young dragon had been through so much. "I can keep going," Pyrith said determinedly. "I want to go home." They pressed on through the forest. As the twin suns began to set, Elena's research station finally came into view in the distance. Relief flooded through her. But suddenly, the sound of engines filled the air. Elena's heart sank as she saw a transport vehicle emerging from the trees ahead. The poachers had circled around and found them. Vex Morrigan stepped out, flanked by 2 guards. "Dr. Vasquez, or whatever your real purpose was. Very clever, but this ends now. That dragon youngling represents a fortune. I am not letting it go." Elena stepped forward, placing herself between the poachers and the dragons. "You cannot take him. I have already sent all the evidence of your illegal operations to the Galactic Council. Your facility location, your captured specimens, everything. It was a bluff she had not had time. But Vex did not know that. "You are lying," Vex said, but uncertainty crossed his face. "Am I?" Elena pulled out her datapad, showing him a screen. She had actually been recording everything since entering his facility. Every cage, every creature, every transaction record I could access. All documented. "If you leave now, you might escape before authorities arrive. If you waste time here, you will be caught." Vex's expression changed from anger to calculation. He looked at the dragons, then at Elena, then at his guards. Finally, he cursed. "This is not worth it. Move out." He and his men rushed back to their vehicle and sped away into the forest. Elena's legs nearly gave out from relief. "You were magnificent," Scareth said with awe. "Humans truly are remarkable." They reached the research station as full darkness fell. Elena immediately sent the real evidence to the Galactic Council, along with a detailed report. Then, she prepared food and medical care for everyone. Pyrith ate hungrily, asking endless questions between bites. "What is this food? How do your machines work? Why is your skin so soft? Do all humans help people they do not know?" Elena answered patiently, charmed by the young dragon's curiosity. This was the real Pyrith, the one Scareth had described full of wonder and questions, recovering quickly from his ordeal. 3 days later, a Galactic Council ship arrived. They had raided the poacher facility, freed all remaining creatures, and issued warrants for Vex Morrigan and his associates. The Council representatives apologized to Scareth for their earlier refusal to help. "Sometimes the system fails," one official admitted. "We are grateful that individuals like Dr. Vasquez exist to remind us what truly matters." Before Scareth and Pyrith left to return to their home world, They stood with Elena outside her station one final time. "You will always have a place with our clan," Scarith said formally. "You are Flamekin now, Elena of Earth, family not by blood, but by choice and deed. If you ever need anything, anywhere in the galaxy, you call on us." He gave her a small crystal pendant, carved in the shape of a dragon. "This is our family symbol. It marks you as one of us." Pyrith stepped forward shyly and gave Elena a small object, one of his shed scales, polished and beautiful. "So you remember me," he said quietly. Elena knelt down to Pyrith's level, tears in her eyes. "I could never forget you, brave one. You survived something very difficult. You will grow up to be extraordinary. Like you," Pyrith said simply, as Elena watched the dragons board the council ship that would take them home. She felt something she had not felt in years, a deep sense of purpose and connection. She had come to Therios to study alien life. Instead, she had learned that the most important discoveries were not about biology or science. They were about understanding that compassion has no boundaries, that family extends beyond species, and that one person who refuses to look away can make all the difference. Elena touched the dragon pendant at her neck and smiled. Somewhere among the stars, she now had family, a father and son, who would remember her always. And she would remember them. The journey had ended. But a new chapter of friendship had just begun. Connecting worlds in ways neither humans nor dragons had imagined before. And perhaps, Elena thought, that was the most important discovery of all.